Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, is my trusted counterpart, Tony Trestle. Morning, Tony.
Good morning, everyone.
And joining us all the way from the city of Saskatchewan, I like saying all those S's, is our guest today, Tony Toews. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Well, it's I don't know. I think most people have an idea where Saskatchewan is, but it's kind of in the center of the universe in a way, isn't it? The middle of
Yeah, sure. If you live here,
if you take North America, I guess it's not quite in the middle because you got the bot. Well, it's pretty close in the middle, isn't it?
it's I'd say Canada's answer to Kansas,
Right?
or Nebraska, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. All right. Well, Tony, without any further ado, we are the podcast so disorganized we repeat, but we do have one, and the one thing that we do ask all our guests to get us rolling is this question. If you would share with us, please, the first memory you have of connecting or feeling connection to a tree or trees.
Yeah, that's for me, that's kind of a tough one in a way because my mom told me long time ago that when I was a toddler, like 2 years old, out playing in the yard, she said she never saw me without a branch, a twig, a leaf in my hand. It was like, yeah, that's how I'm wired, I guess. I'm a forest creature, and growing up in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, that's the southern edge of the boreal forest, and I rode the school bus to. It wasn't that far; it was just across the river. But we lived not only is Prince Albert like not the most glamorous city or whatever, but we lived on the wrong side of the river.
Okay.
Little kind of dumpy neighborhoods that the streets weren't paved, there were no curbs and all that stuff. But it was surrounded by trees and bush and all this kind of thing. So we had a pond, which was kind of stuck in between the railroad track and the highway. It's just a little short walk away, but there were frogs and bugs and all the cool stuff over there. And when I was a little kid, of course, it was a different world, right? They let me wander around because I knew my way home. But
Right.
I would go over to this pond sometimes. You had to cross the railroad tracks. Well, this is serious, man. Railroad tracks, so I'd look both ways, and you could see for a mile down the track either way. But then I'd get down and put my ear in the track, and I'd listen. Is there a train coming? It's like it's train's going to show up doing 500 kilometers an hour, right?
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah. You
Yeah, I
did
did
the track.
actually.
Yeah. Okay. And put coins on there and let them get flattened out. But
No way, you did that too?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, because you get to know when the train would come, right? And then, you'd gather quarters, pennies. Well, you always were wondering, and then the kind of that anticipation of it's going to be a problem, but they just flattened the heck out of them, and it was so cool.
Oh yeah. The pennies were great. They just squished.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
as for trees and going back into the mists of time, we had a patch of ostrich ferns on the north side of our house, and or fiddleheads, the standard ferns there. And I was 4 years old, and I don't know how I don't know how this thought occurred to me, but I grabbed Mom's anvil style secateurs and I was out there, and I discovered that if you snip one of these ferns right at the bottom, and it just falls real slow, like it looks like a 60-80 foot tree coming down, right? Because it takes so long to hit the ground. And it's like, oh, this is fun, man. This is cool. And I'm out there, snip, watch it fall, snip, watch it fall. I did a bunch of those, and then after a little while, I'm like, I could be getting in trouble. So I quit. And I thought, oh man, I better hedge my bets here. So I went in and went to Mom and ratted out the neighbor girl, who had nothing to do with it. She wasn't there. Next thing you know, I'm getting a spanking, and I'm like, oh man, how'd that happen? I probably still had the clippers in my hand, right? So,
somebody, I think it was a neighbor girl, was cutting all these with
yeah.
this.
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
wasn't me.
yeah. No, I was poor. The jig was up. I didn't have anything. I wasn't gonna get away with that one. So,
Yeah.
uh, bless
No,
mom.
were they like part of a garden or something, or
Yeah, well, I think they were just their own little entity, kind of between the steps and the house and the sidewalk. You sometimes get the
yeah,
steps
yeah,
stick out and the sidewalk goes by, and you get this little triangular piece of no man's land stuck there, and
yeah.
somebody planted fiddleheads in there, and just to you know fill it in, so you don't have to mow it or whatever. And
Wow, it reminds me of so many things that as a kid you just do because you're in the moment and it's fun, and you know
yeah,
it's always a little bit later that you have that. It's almost that transferred formative stage where you start to then you anticipate a consequence, but it was later, right?
yeah, yeah,
And as we mature, we think about all that before, and we only have those fleeting moments of childish wonder and play for shorter periods.
yeah, yeah,
Because consequence immediately, thwarts our adventure.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I was kind of waiting for the consequence. I figure, it's going to come around, so I better go tackle this right now, kind of thing. But it didn't go the way I planned. So,
So were you like a lot of young kids, and did you climb in trees as well, or were they
oh
big
yeah,
enough?
yeah, yeah. I did climb in trees. Actually, I remember learning about willow wood
Okay.
at my uncle's farm in Manitoba, southern Manitoba, right down by the North Dakota border, kind of thing. Red River Valley, Altona, Winkler, that area. Anyway, they had willows. They had like a 5-acre farmyard, and they had these, Siberian willows going around 3 sides of the farmyard. And my cousins, Ron and Jim, they would get up in the willows, and they'd at one end, right, and they'd transition through the willows all the way around to the far end without touching the ground. That was the goal, eh? Stay up in the trees and make it all the way around. So we were over there visiting, and so I get up in there behind them, and I'm scared of heights. I'll just throw that in, right? I still am. So good days, bad days, whatever. But anyway, I get up there behind them, and we're probably never more than 15, 20 feet off the ground, kind of thing. But that was enough. And I'm following the cousins around in the trees, and there's this one spot where you have to stand on this willow trunk, and you actually have to jump and grab this branch that was a decent size. It was probably like thicker than my wrist is now, and you have to grab that branch and kind of swing onto that tree, and away you go. And so Jim goes and does it. Yeah, cool. Ron does it. Okay, my turn. I jump, grab this branch, and it just shears off. I'm gone. See ya.
Wow.
Flat on my back on the ground. Wham! Missed the picnic table with my head by like inches, maybe a foot. I don't know. And thankfully, I was flat on my back. Like I didn't land on my head and break my neck or whatever. I didn't break anything. I just was like really winded with this
Yeah.
branch across my guts.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was my introduction to various wood strengths, including willow. They're not all the same. Anybody
No.
who climbs willows knows that. But
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, that was.
How did your career evolve into getting working with trees?
I'm a late bloomer and a slow learner, and and some people know themselves better than others, and I'd be other. And so it was a pretty twisty path. I worked in a retail greenhouse one time for was it a couple of years, whatever, a couple of seasons. Actually, in June of 1988, we had the hottest weather we've ever had in Saskatchewan. Hottest weather on record. It was like 42 degrees, and for what is that in Fahrenheit, Dwayne? It's over 100.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah,
Yeah,
100
it's
plus.
it's
Yeah.
well over 100. And and I'm sitting in a greenhouse with a
Ooh.
hose, and the plants are wilting. Like I watered them 5, 6 times a day because you could literally just about watch them wilt. Like you come back, you hose them down, come back in an hour, and they're toast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, a little bit of greenhouse and via pizza delivery and house framing and drywall installing and whatever else. I've had so many jobs I can't even remember them all. And, oh yeah, I was building houses in Edmonton with a cool guy, Jeremy, and he knows, like, he's got the spiritual gift of building. Like, this guy can build anything, and I was labor, but we had a good time. We had a lot of laughs and stuff. But what was it? So I still lived in Saskatoon. I had two little kids at that point, and so we'd come home maybe on the weekend, or maybe after 10 days, maybe after 2 weeks. Like, we'd frame up an entire house, and then we'd take 2-3 days off and come home. And anyways, I think that kind of dried up a bit, and towards the end of a winter, and I talked to Norm at a certain local arborist company. Dwayne knows who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to make sure I try not to throw anybody under the bus. But anyways, oh yeah, he was walking down my street. They had a city contract to prune the elms in my neighborhood, or all the street trees, and I just talked to him. You're looking for anybody, and so we had an interview, and next thing you know, I'm on the crew. So I was in my mid 30s by then, probably 35, something like that. And so working at that company was an eye opener. It was a bit of a gong show. It was Norm. Bless him. I like Norm. I like him a lot, but he wasn't the easiest guy to work for, because he's the Energizer Bunny. B, he's like ADD and or ADHD for sure. Don't forget the age, that really applies to him. Uh, and he gets up at, well, I don't know about now, but anyway, he used to get up at 5 in the morning and hit the ground running, go go go, and he went till like 9:30 at night, and then there was just an off switch. I think it went click, and he fell over and slept for a while, and then he got up and did it again.
It sounds like some tree people have that affliction.
Right. And so, to his credit, I think he never asked his employees to do anything that he wouldn't do, but he was just kind of an extreme guy. So not all of us are wired that way. But anyway, so we worked hard, and um, we had that thing where it was like wage averaging over a 2 week period, or hours, whatever. Like, he didn't have to pay you overtime until you'd gone over 80 hours in 2 weeks, right?
Okay.
So we put in long days, but there was usually a rain day in there somewhere, and he'd phone you at 6:30 in the morning and go, "Yeah, we're not working today." It's like, okay. So so it's like, oh, what am I doing today? I don't know. I'm tired. But and then so you got some overtime here and there, but not that much. And I remember the interview. He said to me, "Well, we don't pay that much, but you get lots of hours." And in my head, I'm going, so I get to trade all my waking hours for a subsistence living? Is that what you're telling me? Which was more or less true. I still remember opening my first paycheck. It was an envelope with a check in, and I opened this thing and I look at it, and Sean was right next to me, because he was kind of had the cat out there, and he was there at the same time. And I looked at my check and I said out loud, "We're going to starve." But we didn't starve. So,
what was your biggest lesson or takeaway, if you like thinking back on it, like from that experience? I mean, everyone, I think, well, anybody in the tree business has usually worked at one or two different tree services, and if they stay in it, they're often they don't always stay at the one they started at because of various reasons. Because there's a different, or different companies are different, and some, maybe, I guess you could say, are better than others, or better to work for. And if you want to stay in the business, usually you find those, but you still learn something from those first experiences.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. The thing I learned was I was never going to work for Norm again. That's not fair. I learned lots. I learned a lot of stuff. Yeah, I'd never climbed with rope and saddle before, and probably some chainsaw technique, and I'd never used a chipper before, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I learned a ton of things, actually, and but but I also learned that depending on who you work for, it can be a little chaotic.
Yeah.
So
which isn't a bad experience to have or
No,
knowledge.
not bad. And there were some characters. The one fella, see, there was a climber in a tree, and he wasn't up very high, and he wanted a pole saw. And another fellow was on the ground, young guy and a good guy, but he went to throw one of the old Marvin fiberglass pole saws up to this guy, like to kind of toss it straight up in the air, right? And he's looking up, and the climber missed it, and it came right back down and nailed this guy right between the eyes, like just above his nose, and left a big circle in his forehead. Um, there was another guy who this was, I'd say, more dumb than misfortunate, but he was sweaty, and he was drying his face in the chipper outflow, like the chipper's idling, so it's blowing out the out the outshoot there, but he's up on the hitch drying his face in the the chipper chute. It's like no glasses, no nothing, right? Like, well, hopefully no random chip comes flying out of there and you know, with a wooden eye, right?
You know, a real guy uses a chipper for a hair dryer.
That's right, a real man. Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, well, that's right.
It's man glitter.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I love that. Yeah, so, but I got to learn a bunch of stuff, and I got to meet Spence and Danny from the city, and they both kind of tried to recruit me a little bit. And Danny came by one time when I was doing some, what was I doing? I don't know, pruning in a park, I think, on a city contract, because we got lots of city contracts with that company. And Danny comes by and hands me a job posting, hey. And I'm like, oh, Danny, I don't have my ISA. And that was like top of the list for things you needed, right? So anyway, nothing came of that one that time, but I did go and get my ISA. You still had to drive somewhere and sit in a room and have a proctored exam, right? Not, couldn't do it online. So I drove to Edmonton. Yeah. And I've forgotten the name of the guy who proctored the exam. You would know him. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah, did my ISA and nailed it. That was good. And then a while later, Spence dropped by my house and threw a job posting in the mailbox, and I put in for that one, and that was my transit over to the city, and at 37 years old. So.
And how many years you been with the city of Saskatoon?
22 and change. So, yeah.
So that's been the bulk of your career.
Yeah, for sure. And the city's been good. It's I was amazed, at first, kind of like Dave Renfer, and he was my first partner on a truck kind of thing, and he goes hard, and we went hard. We worked, but we didn't go crazy, but we worked hard, and safety wasn't as big of a deal then. It wasn't so much on the radar, so we'd put out 2 cones, and we'd both be climbing a tree at the same time. Not even the same tree. It's like an adjacent tree. No groundy. There's just the 2 of us, and you just watch before you throw something down, right? Try not to hit anybody or any cars or that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we worked hard. But the thing was, Dave loved his coffee breaks, and we would go and find some nearby place and sit down and order a tea or whatever, and relax a little bit, and then we'd go out and we'd be back at it. But ending your day at 4:00 and knowing that there was a time of the day that you're actually going to stop for the day, that was amazing. I was like, wow, you're kidding. The sun's still up and we're quitting? No way.
And let me guess, you just couldn't help yourself but find yourself doing other tree work.
Well, yeah, you nailed it. For sure. Because at the private place there, I don't know, we worked so hard that evenings I would eat my supper and stare at the wall and go to bed. Weekends, if I had, like, we did have weekends off typically, although it wasn't unusual to work on Saturday, but yeah, my weekend I was just toast. I was roadkill. I didn't have energy to do much. But when I got to the city, I think just the shorter days, a less chaotic environment, and kind of predictability. There's an element of predictability to your day, and that helped a lot. So I wasn't completely dead after work all the time.
Yep. Well, anyone that's experienced those, I guess you could call them the two extremes in arboriculture, but they're quite different. You know, anyone that's hovered in both of those universes, and it's interesting to me how many people, like, there's a lot of arborists, and it's much to the consternation sometimes of the private sector people that they'll get someone good, they're at a level where they're trustworthy and performing well, and then poof, they disappear into the genie bottle of the
Right.
city,
Yeah.
and rarely, if ever, leave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a stability there for the reasons that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh, and I left out one little ingredient there when I when I moved over to the city. Suddenly, I was on time and a half compared to my last gig, so I was making 50% more per hour, like instantly. So,
right,
but that
right, which is another
that hasn't kept up though. Now we put out postings and nobody applies, because wages are in the private sector are, as far as I know, they're equal or maybe a little better. Um, than what the
interesting.
city's paying. So oftentimes they'll post for an arborist and not get anybody.
Maybe that's part of was a response to what we're talking about, knowing that, like, if you're gonna I think it's also a lot harder to get people these
Oh, just in
days,
general.
generally speaking.
Okay.
It seems like COVID was a sort of a turning point for some reason. I don't know. Tony, I mean, you're involved with private enterprise still. Do you feel that way? And do you guys experience a similar thing?
Yeah. Yeah, there's very few good companies I know that wouldn't hire 3 or 4 qualified people tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And the turnover rate's gone up,
Yeah.
I'd say, in the last 5 to 10 years. So you get people in, good people in, they stay 2 years or so, then they either want something different, or but yeah, manpower, personnel has been the big limiting factor
Right.
I know for my brother's company, the family company here, as well as, like I said, I don't know of any good tree companies, very few, that wouldn't hire a person,
Right.
highly
Yeah.
qualified, good person
Yeah.
tomorrow. Um, just like I mean,
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
if you have the skill set, right?
Yeah.
It's bad if you're the company looking for people. And I mean, we get a lot of people that apply. We get a lot of candidates come through, but I think last time I checked, when I was looking in, I think we had
Wow.
143 some people. And, a
There you
third of
go.
those don't show up, right? Another third doesn't have a driver's license, which we require because we're highly
Right.
mechanized,
Yeah.
right? You can't walk to the job site. Um, so that now you're down to, and then out of that third that's left, and a lot just aren't, and what they say, on the job posting
Right.
is not
Yeah. Wow.
entirely
Yeah.
accurate to their skill level.
Yeah.
And so
So
it's tough.
COVID.
It is really
Yeah.
tough.
COVID messed
And
some
it's
things
Do you
not.
up.
think it was COVID, or for
It's
whatever reason? And
There's a generational change too. I think that.
Well, I think what's happened is now, by me, you can go get a job at a convenience store, like a Sheets, like a gas convenience store, sells like, and make the same amount of money for far less work. You get there's a lot more people competing for that, that
Make
subset
the same
of
money, like, for real?
employees.
That's
Yeah, it's
incredible.
crazy. I mean, I don't know. I guess in Canada, you guys do have some of them. I don't know what they are in Saskatchewan, but here, like Wawa and Sheets. So it's a gas station convenience
Right.
store. They sell food.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can walk in there and make, $18 to $20 an hour.
Is that what arborists are making in your region, or?
It can be.
Wow.
Yeah. It's right on line,
Huh.
on those things. And it's,
And
I don't know. It's tough.
with exchange, that's probably 25 Canadian. That seems kind of low.
Well, I mean, for inexperienced people, right?
Okay.
For people off the
yeah,
Yeah.
street,
yeah, it's
Okay.
people
starting.
to
Yeah, I
come in
guess
and
so.
build it. And we're obviously
Yeah,
paying
yeah.
our climbers more,
Well, yeah, I hope so.
but for entry level,
Yeah.
but for entry level stuff, and it's tough. It's and I think some of it's generational change.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. It's just another
Listen to
challenge
us
to be able
old
to.
Yeah.
guys talking about generational change.
Right. Well, yeah. True or true, right? So, and I remember listening to Otis Sisk, and it's funny. Like, he just said, it's such a hard job. It's really demanding and physically difficult and all that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of scratching my head and going, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I've only been doing it for 25 years, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's a hard job. Yeah, I just noticed. No, I mean, I knew that, but but still, just to hear him say it out loud was like, okay, I guess that would be a deterrent to quite a few people.
Well, it
And
always, it always has been. I mean, anyone knows that's been in the business at all. I'm sure this isn't unique to our industry, but certainly in arboriculture, tree work, you know, it, that the difficultiness, the physicality of it is apparent. In your first couple weeks on any tree crew, and
oh yeah,
you're instantly a branch manager. You're promoted to that status,
yeah,
and
yeah,
hauling brush and feeding chippers is not that easy. It's
no,
pretty physically demanding. It's loud, it's dirty, there's vibration, there's physical
oh
effort,
yeah,
there's risk of being
yeah,
hit by falling limbs. There's just so many things that we kind of
yeah,
just assume.
yeah,
And if you think about it, like coming in as brand new, watching this, going, "What?"
yeah. If you don't keep your brain in the game, the chipper will turn you into hamburger. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Chainsaws, who's who's ever had stitches from a chainsaw? Wow, I have not, which I'm grateful for. But
I think it's always important to
yeah,
try to remember the newest person on the crew is kind of your most valuable resource for so many reasons, and one of them is to stay in touch with
hmm,
that newness, that feeling of what it was like the
right,
first time. That's it's kind of the reason we ask the question, or I like asking the question about your first memory, of being in a tree.
right, yeah,
Um,
yeah, and private sector too. You're cutting down some 90-foot poplar in a backyard with no back alley, so everything has to be dragged out to
yep,
the street. And I remember one job where we did just that, and we had to drag everything through the garage because there wasn't enough
yep,
room on the side of the house to drag branches. So they, opened the man door. They made us a path and opened the overhead door, and we dragged everything through the garage and tried not to wreck the door frame as we're
yep,
going by. So leaving green streaks on the door,
yep.
stuff like that. That was a crazy one too. Actually, that was a bit of an eye opener for me. Um, Another guy climbed this tree and rigged it down. It wasn't 90 feet. I'm exaggerating. This one's only 70, 75. But this poplar, full crown, healthy looking poplar, and so he rigs it down, and I'm on the branch management crew, and um, when so we did the job and we hit the road, dolly all the logs out through the garage and everything, and afterwards, Al went to grind the stump, and the stump was a little tall for his liking, so he pulled out a bigger saw and took a slice off, got it down closer to the ground, and he told us that was the easiest stump cut he'd ever done in his life. It had 3 straps of cambium that were like maybe 6, 8, 10 inches wide on a this is like a meter wide stump, and the rest was punk,
Wow.
and this tree didn't have any visible symptoms. Like the bark was still on it. There was no dead sticks in the crown. It looked great. And and my coworker's rigging off this thing, and while he's in it, and I'm like, holy cow, that could have been one of those statistics that you don't want to hear about.
Right.
Yeah,
So it
so
didn't, but it didn't display like health wise, but so nobody really was aware of structural diagnosis then.
no, and even the last cut of cutting the tree down, the wood was still solid. Hey, it looked good. It was hard. It was it was all there, and then Al cuts the stump down a little lower, and it's mush.
Wow.
So yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
Always always something new to learn, and always a reason to keep your radar on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When we're, using the same thing for our life support as our rigging support, it's important.
To quote a famous Tony T, what could go wrong?
Yeah, okay, just about everything.
Well, that's a good question to start with, right?
Yeah, and actually ask the
Yeah.
question and actually think
Yeah,
about the answer, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It starts a process, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
We call it the Human Forestry Podcast, and Tony, you've been relating a lot about, you've been talking about people and mentioning a lot of names. Um, I, have you ever thought of the
But wait, there's
concept
more.
of people or people we've interacted with growing up with, uh, from young to in our career, as a forest, and how forests interact with one another, and is there any parallels to how we as people interact with one another? You know, different species, almost like different trees,
Oh,
like the willows in
oh
your
yeah,
life and the oaks in your life, and uh, uh,
right, yeah.
have you ever thought about that, or
Um, I suppose I have, maybe not directly related to that question. Didn't sit down and go,
no?
oh,
No, I
people
understand.
are like
Yeah,
the forest.
philosophically,
But yeah, for sure. And there's what are the stages of life? Dependence, independence, and hopefully we make it to
right?
interdependence, right? So yeah, and I guess we're all seedlings to start with, and we're all kind of in some kind of a group, and maybe if we mature well, we send our metaphorical
Yeah,
roots out to graft up with
yeah,
others, and of course, if there are others of our own kind, we graft
yeah,
easily, right? And if we're distinctly different kinds, well, maybe we can still inhabit the same forest together, and to mutual benefit, but maybe we don't quite graft up the same
yeah,
way.
exactly.
And yeah, so
Yeah, that Susan Simard's research suggests that trees of different species actually even do graft up.
I was just thinking of her, and they trade nutrients and stuff, but not all of
That's
them.
correct.
It's like, no, I don't want to talk to
Right.
that guy. No, I like this kind of species right beside me over here. So yeah, no, that was a very cool TED talk for one. And yeah,
Yeah, it's a part of I found fascinating, and what I also found fascinating about that is that in low energy states, the one species, I believe it was uh, birch and fir, birch
right,
and fir,
yeah,
which is quite different. It's not even we got
oh
deciduous
yeah,
and coniferous, and when the seedlings were shaded, they by in low photosynthetic ability, they would get photosynthate from the other trees, and vice versa. There'd be a share,
right,
which I thought was
yeah,
fascinating. And then also the concept of the older trees, what they were calling mother trees, would also
yeah,
and they would always be sure to give a little bit more, a little extra to their kinds, their offspring first, sort of thing,
yeah, oh yeah,
which was really fascinating to me, and yet not ignore, but there was no connection with cedar.
right, right, yeah. Yeah. Well, and to me, it makes sense if you get trees that inhabit the same forest niche. Birch and fir, they both like kind of the cooler, humid type forest environment. Well watered, that kind of thing. And they're not the montane forest of Doug fir and ponderosa pine kind of thing. These guys they're well, birch aren't that shade tolerant, I guess, but they like their moist,
Yeah,
humid environment type of thing. And yeah. Speaking of, well, just forest, I don't know, whatever. But story time. You got time for a story?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. So my folks had a cabin at Emma Lake, which, well, it's 2 hours north of Saskatoon, or a half hour north of where I grew up in Prince Albert, and we spent a lot of time there, and that was a real happy place for me, just wandering in the forest. I did that a lot, and but we had real good friends, a family of real good friends. Like our parents were friends, and then the kids, and us, we're all pretty tight, and they had a cabin up there as well. And oh, how long ago? Anyway, it's 20 years ago maybe. So like I was an arborist, and blah blah. But my friend Roger gets a hold of me. We're there at the lake. We're at the lake, and he's like, Tony, I got a tree. Would you come and look at it? It's a woodpecker kind of has been going at it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah. So I cruise over there, and looking at this tree, and Tony, you probably know what a northern pileated woodpecker is. Am I right? Yeah,
Oh yeah,
okay.
they're big
Yep,
ones.
yep. The jackhammer of the sky.
Hmm.
And so one of these northern pileated had gone at this like probably 65, 70-foot spruce in their yard. And this woodpecker must have been standing right on the ground and just blasting away at this spruce, and made a hole on each side down at ground level that you could lose a travel mug in. If you got right down and looked, you could see through the
Wow.
tree. And this was a healthy tree to start with. And my friend there, he's like, "So what do you think? Is this tree savable?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not going to fall over today, but we should probably deal with it because it's seriously compromised here, and now it's going to
Yeah.
rot." And it was definitely close enough to the cabin that if it went that way, it would end up on the cabin. Blah blah. So there's enough other trees in the yard that kind of the best route I could see to flop this thing. And if you can flop it, why would you climb it, right? But was towards the lake, and they have lakefront property there, and so I'm kind of make the plan. We're gonna drop it onto the beach, but it's tall enough. It's gonna hit the water, and that's no problem. But just for people to be aware that it's gonna totally where it lands, it's going to be right across the beach and into the water. So there's no safe zone in that direction. You got to be off to the side, right? And so next door, their next door cabin neighbor is a hockey coach, a cool guy, and he comes over, and I had already climbed up the tree, and I put a rope, like I didn't climb to the top, but I put a rope in it, and so we could give it a little tug, and so this fella comes over, and hey guys, what's going on? He's got a couple friends with him, and well, we got this tree and it's compromised. We're gonna drop it onto the beach, and oh well, do you need a hand? Can we help? And I'm like, well, sure, why not? And so coach goes into action. He picks up a stick, and we're on the beach at this point, and he's drawing X's and O's on the beach. And he's like, okay, you and you're an X. You and you're an O. Okay, and we're gonna give this a tug, and when the tree starts to move, okay, you guys, you X's go that way, and the O's go this way, and we're not gonna run into each other and have a problem. And so he coached us up real good, complete with live drawings on the beach, and so yeah, so I used some of my best Dwayne felling knowledge, and I made a nice notch there facing the beach, and plunge cut it, set my hinge real good, and swept back, left a strap at the back, had a couple of wedges in place, and I instructed them about all this. I'm going to do all this cutting, but don't worry, it's nothing's going on yet until I give you the signal. And so we're all set, and we look around. Okay, nobody else is entering the zone or anything. And I was like, okay, guys, here we go. Snip the back strap, and down it goes, splash in the water, and everything's great. And all right, well, that was fun. Thanks a lot, guys. So the coach, you might have heard of this particular coach, Mike Babcock,
I
right?
not sure.
Detroit Red
Okay.
Wings, Stanley Cup,
Okay.
Olympic team, gold
Yeah.
medal.
Okay.
That Mike Babcock. So yeah, that was pretty awesome.
So he
Mike
just
Babcock
couldn't
is
help but go into
rowdy.
coach mode, and it worked.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, but it was good. I mean, nobody, we didn't have that thing that you get like in the movies where you run into each other as the tree's coming down. And
Yeah, well, I thought that was the story was going to be if someone ran in the water or got hit, or
yeah,
that's awesome. I think
yeah.
that shows, when you have true passion and love for what you do, it just filters through and everything. And obviously his career, indicates that with his, I think success does often go along with it, certainly in sports, right? Like but
Yeah.
he would have lost a fair share of games too in order to have all those wins, but he
Oh
never
yeah.
would have never lost his zeal or his passion for doing what he loves, and it showed through just coming over helping someone fell a tree, right? And did you talk with him about I would be curious to know what he would have thought about your planning process, because clearly you had a plan and you had laid it out and you told him everything was going to happen, and which is kind of what he did with the pulling of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know that we really talked about that so much, um, but yeah, just a cool guy, really down to earth. He liked to, even though they lived in Detroit during hockey season and everything, he liked to bring his family back to Saskatchewan during the summer just to keep them kind of grounded. I think he's a farm boy, and he never got all full of himself. It seems like he was just, he had no problem hanging out with our friends, his neighbors, and he had the Stanley Cup on his boat, and they're all cruising around out in the lake, like our friends and him and this. So it's the Stanley Cup. Don't lose that overboard.
Well, I never knew that. I didn't know that you knew him through cabin experience in northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
here it
fun
is. It's the
times.
second time we've had hockey come up on the podcast, and both times it's people from Saskatchewan, and not only Saskatchewan, but from Saskatoon.
There we are. Yes.
I think it's no wonder that when St. Louis got the Blues, that they were supposed to go to Saskatoon.
Yeah.
And I always thought
Yeah.
it would come up again that there'd be an NHL team going to Saskatchewan, but it never has happened.
Well, I don't know if that we're a big enough market, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially with the price of tickets.
I don't
and
know.
that.
The fans in Saskatchewan are pretty dear, pretty loyal. I think
Oh yeah.
people would go a great distance to come to games. I might be surprised.
Yeah. But it's only 5 hours to Edmonton. That's, you can do that after work on Friday.
We were talking about trees cohabiting and getting along. And we talked about the roots. I always also find it fascinating how the canopies do that too. When you go into a natural
Right.
stand and you look up or lay on the ground for a while, and especially if there's a little breeze blowing, how the canopies don't really interfere. And it was kind of an epiphany for me to grasp the concept of an edge tree, especially in a clump or a group of trees. I always thought, well, that tree's getting pushed out, it's getting, which is such a human mentality, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of just a branch of this whole cluster of trees. And it's probably not complaining or upset at all. It's just performing its role in that community, right?
Yeah.
And,
sure.
I was, for a long time, it was just such a human thing to think, well, they all need to be straight and even, and that was a bit of a lesson for me to think about and to cross over, right? Because we all have our unique place, and it isn't it, it just, that's where it grew up. It wasn't that's all it was.
Well, that kind of thinking, they all need to be straight and even, and there are plenty of neighborhoods where that's kind of the prevailing thought, right?
Well,
we get,
and then the middle tree is probably
tree's
jealous of the big full edged canopy of that leaning tree, right? Yeah, but I'm tall. You're so tall and skinny, and but you got this nice big flowing outward canopy, right? In the human world, we envy as one to the other. Rather than thinking what beautiful thing we create together.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You triggered another memory, another little happy place kind of favorite memory up at the lake there. I didn't have to walk very far, and there was a spruce bog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tony, do you know what a spruce bog is? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it was a gorgeous place. It had all these tall, skinny black spruce and moss that was like, I don't know, a foot deep, 2 feet deep in places, whatever. And I'd go in there and just lie down in the moss. I'd pick a place with no sharp sticks, and just lie down and look up and watch the canopies kind of waving back and forth, and the separation between them, like you were talking about, Dwayne. And they're connected, but they're separated, and a little bit of sky peeking through there, and
yeah, it's fascinating. They're connected in the soil, but they're almost connected, and really, even with the separation, it illustrates a connection, because they it fits like a puzzle almost. How they just, and they wave and sway together. It's quite amazing, really, if you take the time to look at it. I was in trees for a long time before I noticed that, and I think it's part of the the mystique of being in a forest, and the whole concept of forest bathing. That's one part of it. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah, I did forest bathing before I had any idea what it was.
You were bathing in the moss and taking in the canopy.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well,
Yeah.
and then now we know that the trees actually release a chemical that calms our nervous system, right? They release different chemicals, right?
Right.
That actually
Yeah. Yeah.
physically actually acts on our nervous system and calms it, which is fascinating to me. And you can't really, I don't know anyone that doesn't experience that sense of calmness that comes from being immersed in
Hmm.
a forest, whether you're up in the canopy or not. Like, I think it's one of the reasons hunters, particularly bow hunters, get such a uh, you know it,
Mm.
you know most hunters, I mean, you're always, you're there to hunt, you're there to get some food for your family. At least that's why I hunt. But I'm also there for that experience, that I guess you'd call it spiritual
Oh yeah.
experience, really, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And you're not
Yeah.
really that disappointed if you go home empty, because you had those days, or to be in nature and reconnecting and decompressing and all that.
Oh yeah. 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 I remember standing in downtown Toronto. I think it was January, with 60, 70-story buildings all around, and I'm standing on the sidewalk, and it's street, sidewalk, and the concrete goes right up against the building, right? And then this building is straight up, and you're in a canyon, and I couldn't even see the sun. It was like the sun was out, but it was dark down there, and I couldn't see a single green thing. And I'm looking around and going, "Is this a habitable space? Can you live here?" I couldn't. I'd need to get out of here. It was wild, you know.
The concrete
Concrete
jungle.
jungle. Yeah. Oh yeah. What is it? There's a thing they called nature deficit disorder.
Oh, is there?
And yeah, and I think it's a real thing. It's been observed apparently in people who live in inner cities, or the projects, or that kind of thing, where there's no green stuff, or hardly any green around them. And yeah, it's psychologically and emotionally and spiritually hard on a person. It's not a place that you need to spend a lot of your life,
Yeah.
you know. It's Yeah.
Well, and I find
Shigo said touch trees,
and
right?
people that do, live in those places, there's generally a park of some type. And you'll even on our podcast, we'll hear when we ask the question about where you first experienced, they're always running off from the house to a backwoods area or a park, or
Yeah.
and especially in
Oh
the
yeah.
youth, especially when we're young, we gravitate into those. Even in those urban jungles, you gravitate to green spaces where there's grass and trees of some type, typically.
Sure. Yeah. That's where, you can kick a soccer ball, you can, and I was thinking Shigo said touch trees,
Yeah.
and just two words, but I find so much depth and wisdom in that thought. Touch trees. You have to get close enough, within arm's length of a tree to touch a
Yep.
tree, right? And it's not just watch them fly by on the highway kind of thing at half a kilometer distance or something, but no, stop, slow down, go and look and touch and feel and smell. And I remember pulling a loose, long shard of bark off a big old elm tree in town here one time, um, and the stuff that was underneath was so cool. It was this little micro world. They're little tiny, tiny little mushrooms, like they're 2 millimeters. They're just micro, and there were little tiny snails in there. I didn't even know we had terrestrial snails, in this part of the world. And yeah, there's, just colors and various things. You get to see, of course, all the lichen and the moss on the outside, but then you get inside there, and it's like, oh, there's a whole bunch of things going on here. Not just spider
Yeah.
eggs. I love spiders, by the way, but
Yeah, it's fascinating that the habitat, that especially the older it gets and the longer it's been there, and what makes a home or finds its place in its cracks and crevices, and also with
yeah,
mass and size, there's a great
right.
um yeah, it's pretty cool. Um
It's kind of like the ABC canopy of the redwoods in California, hey? Like
yeah.
there's creatures living 150 feet off the ground kind of thing that you don't find anywhere near the ground. And then if you go up to the 300-foot level, you find other things living up there, and they're not down in the middle. It's wild,
Yeah.
eh?
There was when I was in Thailand, and I would go running every morning into this park, and it had a running kind of walking loop. It was a kilometer and a half, but it also bordered along the beach. And there were these trees, and it was funny. I don't know the species of this tree, but it was a lot of surface roots,
Mm,
very wide spreading. Probably it was wider than it was tall, and it was nearly 100 feet tall, but it was wider than that. And
cool.
but the outer canopy branches would come right down so you could touch the tips of them. Right? So I would
Oh yeah.
always, on my last loop, I would jog up to it, and I would hold the tips of the lower branches and just stand there and hold on to them. And
Mm,
a moment of meditation or prayer, and then walk the roots to the base. I could walk on the
right.
surface roots right to the trunk flare, and then hold the trunk. Although I had to be careful because there was always ants or various critters that you had to. I learned that.
And they might have scarier
You
ants
had to
than
do a
we have,
little bit
right?
of an assessment, but you could just stand there for a bit and touch it and hold it, and inspired
Mm,
largely by Shigo's influence. And I just did that on a regular basis, and I still like to do that.
yeah.
Just touch and feel, and I don't know if there's something mystically or spiritually necessarily, but I guess I shouldn't say that. I really do believe there is something there if you're open to it.
Well, and when you were saying that, I was picturing in my mind you're running up towards this tree, and then these twigs are hanging down, and you stop and you kind of take hold a little bit, and the very first word that went through my head was
Yeah,
thankfulness. And I'm not even sure exactly why, but it just seemed like that would be an appropriate response
yeah,
right there. And
yeah. I would always, yeah.
saying,
It was that I would just, kind of talk to the tree, I guess. I don't know. But it was live.
mm,
Like it was green, living tips, and knowing trees, like I
yeah,
know I'm touching the apical meristems of the outer edge, which is right close to the living active part of the tree, the whole outer canopy. I mean, obviously I wasn't touching the whole canopy, but even by touching those outer tips, and I'd feel that and just hold them for a while, close my eyes and
yeah,
just feel it. And I might be puffing
yeah,
a bit from running and so on, and just kind of, and then walking in and then feeling the trunk, because I know that didn't have deep bark furrows. But it was that smooth type bark like a banyan would have, or a beech.
oh yeah,
It was probably some type of fig, and then I could, I know there, but the same cambium that I would be close to on those outer edges is also not far under the surface here. And just making
yeah.
that connection as best I could. That's one of the cool things about knowing something about trees or the biology of them, where you can have a little deeper concept with what you're feeling, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And just this living thing it's so other, it's so different from us, but I mean, I know that no tree is permanent, but they feel like they have a permanence that's oftentimes beyond a human
Absolutely. They're
permanent.
totally, I
Uh,
mean, that I think that's one of the inherent things is it we know that they were there when we like in some cases it looks as old and as big as it does when we first remember it to when it is today, which
oh yeah,
based on your age, you're
yeah,
going, holy, wait a second, this thing. And you're maybe someone that's passed away now remembers, you know, that tree even when it was mature. So you're going, wait a second here, and we're talking at least two generations, now maybe three generations, and you get the
yeah,
concept that like this thing is going to live for, and it's not even close to dying yet. Like you realize also it's going to outlive me, barring a chainsaw or some
right,
catastrophic event. This thing will outlive me,
yeah,
and I think that demands some type of respect as a human. I think.
yeah. I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah, we had the opportunity to. We drove to California about a year ago, October, and we were in Yosemite, and we went up to Mariposa
Yeah,
Grove, and where some of the huge giant
yeah,
sequoias are, and amazing, right? And it's like we're standing there looking at the grizzly giant, which I forget what the diameter is at the bottom. It's like 40 feet or something. It's it wouldn't fit in my house like side to side, and it's got a limb on it that's 7 feet in diameter. I'm like, we don't have trees that big where
yeah.
I live. That's just a branch. But it's like this tree was alive when Jesus walked on the earth. Like, wow, that's mind
It is.
blowing.
It is. It is fascinating. And Tony, you relate about trees that you've even in your career that you remember you first climbed in as an arborist, and now you're still maintaining them with your brother, you and your brother with the company. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you've been doing this job too long. Like when you're on the third homeowner of the house that you've been looking
Yeah,
at, like
yeah,
it's like you go up and you're like, oh, these people, I don't remember these people. They seem awful young. It's like, oh yeah, like they're the third homeowner.
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah.
Or we literally have clients where like we work at their children's house now,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
like, the kids live down there. But yeah, there is something about walking up to a tree, any tree that has some sort of significance, and like the sequoias, like you're touching something that's 3,000 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Yeah.
it's ancient,
Oh yeah.
right? And
Oh yeah.
or even just the big old oaks.
Yeah.
We get here in Pennsylvania, we have they went around in 1976, and any white oak that was alive, estimated to be alive when William Penn took possession of the territory, they designated as a Penn oak.
Okay.
And there's quite a few of them here in the part of Pennsylvania where I live in, and they're just they're just these big, massive white oaks, and they're as wide as they are tall, but they're like 120 foot tall, and they're about 120
Right.
foot crown
Yeah.
spread wide,
Yeah.
with these 40-inch, and they're just awesome, awesome trees. And it's like you wonder if you could pull like a time lapse photo from the tree,
Yeah.
Everything that it had seen,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just like every war in this country, right? And just the history that goes through.
Yeah. No kidding.
Well, and even predating that, like predating settlement, that's what really fascinates me is before, the grids and the lines and the farms and the towns, it was already mature and large.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
First Nations probably admired it as much as everyone does today, right? Like, it's just amazing that like, and it survived that transition, the settling or the domesticating of the
Yeah.
land, right? Which a lot of them didn't survive,
Many.
right? Because of
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Many did not. So yeah. Yeah. Which seems a shame, but
And it's been like you take it even a step further, like that tree grew not far from its parent,
right.
which was probably a specimen in and of
Right.
itself. So it's like you go just one generation back for a tree like that, and you're pretty far
Oh
back.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're hundreds of
Yeah.
years, back in history, and
Yeah.
it's interesting
Yeah.
to think about that, and it's awe inspiring, and it's also can make you feel kind of small
Yeah.
and big at the same
Totally.
time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
well, and Tony, the I I think about and trees in Saskatchewan particularly, being especially Saskatoon, Regina, where you have cities. You're fortunate in Saskatoon being along the river valley, so you have some natural bigger trees typically around where there's water. But a lot of it outside of the valley, there wouldn't be really trees there, and there are some. How old Saskatoon is a city now?
It was settled in 1890. I think 1892 was maybe the first tent village, but it exploded like in a space of 15 years. It went from a few hundred people to many thousands. But yeah, so kind of 1890s.
So, you have
So
100-plus-year-old trees there that may even some go
yeah,
back to somebody planted them, right? And and
right.
that's what's cool too, because a tree that and they're trees I find on the prairies out like that are the growth increments are really tight. They're short
Yeah,
and stout and incredibly strong. Like they're
yeah,
like very rigidly branched, and then you take the same species that's growing somewhere else and it'd be very different.
yeah, yeah. It reminds me of the first time I climbed an oak, because we don't have a lot of oak here. They're not native to Saskatoon, but the bur oaks grow just fine if you plant them in a decent
Yeah.
spot. But anyway, I climbed this oak, and I was looking forward to it. It's like, oh man, this is gonna be so cool. Oak, like the strongest tree out there, and all this, and I get in it, and it's floppy. It's floppy like a garden hose, like the smaller branches. I figured I was going to climb right to the tips and tickle the apical meristem, but no, sir. I'm clinging to this thing, and I'm trying to stay on center and not bend a branch too far. wasn't really worried about it breaking, but it was so rubbery, and I was just kind of in shock. But afterwards, I kind of put two and two together. I guess it's like, oh, that's part of why an oak is such a successful tree. It bends with the wind. It doesn't resist it. It
Yeah.
flows with it. And there's a metaphor in there too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've noticed over the years that you have a good understanding of particularly names of plants, trees, flowers, and not just the common names, but the Latin names. How how did that originate for you? Is something just you have a hobby of, or it just a good memory, or how did that
Yeah.
evolve for you?
Just yeah, kind of interest. My probably top three things that I'm interested in are people, trees, and words. And so yeah, I've always wanted to identify plants and trees and know what they are, kind of thing, and be able to recognize them and this and that. So and of course you get well, even common names are frequently just some kind of a description, right? Like white pine or and you go, well, that tree doesn't look very white. Oh, but if you cut into the wood, it's very, yes, the wood is quite white. Yes, absolutely. But they're just descriptions. Even the Latin names, Quercus rubra. What does rubra mean?
Yeah,
Well, red. Oh, so it's a red oak.
yeah,
Okay, cool. That kind of stuff. And so yeah, I was just interested, and I wanted to know. Inquiring minds want to know. So
yeah, yeah. I always like knowing what the Latin name. Like a thing, a contorta latifolia. It's and you
right.
look at lodgepole pine, and its lateral branches are often quite crooked and contorted.
Yeah, yeah. I did a backyard job where I very reluctantly cut down two gorgeous lodgepole pines. The house was getting demoed, and they were going to build a duplex in there, and these trees were in the way, and I almost refused the job, but it's like, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to. I don't have you know the option to save these trees. It's not happening. So it's like, well, okay, I guess I'll do it. And but that was a so as a side job. I don't have a chipper, and we're loading stuff in my truck. These crazy lodgepole pines, the branches come out and then they do a 90-degree
Yeah,
turn, and the cones are all
yeah,
hooked back. They point towards the trunk, and they don't come off. The cones don't come off. They're like glued onto these branches. So you pick up one twig and try to drag it away, you're getting the whole tree. Like it's all coming with you.
yeah,
So I slashed it into tiny bits on the ground with my chainsaw. I basically chipped it in the backyard with a chainsaw and then dragged bundles of stuff and threw them on my truck. Another eye-opening experience there. But
yeah. The contorted lateral foliage.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's the needles that are contorted, is it not? In according to the Latin
I'm
nomenclature,
not
there.
sure. I've always just associated with the branches, but I think the needles do have a slight twist in them as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's
yeah,
typical. Yeah, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's fascinating, and the flowers. Your interest goes beyond just the arbor side.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I remember probably I don't know, was I 10, 12 years old? I asked my cousin from BC, who's same age. I said, "Do you like plants?" And he goes, "Other than the fact that all life on Earth depends on them, no." He's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, I guess in a lot of ways that's true, right? If we had it'd be pretty much a scorched earth without the greenery.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no even if you're a carnivore, your dinner ate a plant, or your dinner's dinner ate a plant, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. True enough. True enough. True enough. Well, if you were to your career in trees thus far, uh, what would you say your if you would draw a parallel for life lessons? What have trees and your involvement with trees in this industry? How has it helped you as a person thus far? Would you suggest?
Good question. So earlier on, I said sometimes I'm a slow learner, and some people naturally know themselves, just like, and not some kind of an ego trip, but they just are aware of who and what they are, right? That's been kind of a long, slow burn for me. And being in the tree biz has really forced me to confront some of these things. I mentioned I'm scared of
Yeah.
heights, but I can work with it, and good days, bad days. Basically, don't put me in a bucket truck in the middle of a parking lot and say, yeah, take it up to full
Wow.
stick.
Okay.
Like, no, no, thanks. No, I hate that. The wind's blowing and you touch the control and the whole thing's swaying back and forth. There's just something about that that's like, oh, I know the truck is fine. I know it's going to hold me. You've taught me to evacuate from a bucket truck in the middle of right beside the gas pumps in our yard there at
Yeah.
work. And I climbed over the side with a rope and an antron, but I'm not going to do the Ray move of standing on the rim of the bucket and swan
Right.
dive
Right.
off there, melt the rope.
That's right.
But no, just to to know myself and to learn to be okay with that. And I definitely haven't always been okay with, when I look inside and see what's there, I kind of shrink back. It's like I had some kind of a feeling or an attitude that what I'm finding in there isn't okay. And there's a phrase that I don't enjoy that much. It is what it is. It's such a kind of throwaway phrase, but I think in this case, I need to apply that and look inside and see what's there and just say, well, it is what it is. Let it be. Even embrace it.
Yeah.
And Dwayne, you've helped me with that. Our frequent text conversations
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
such have really contributed to just like acceptance. Acceptance is that's a big
Yeah.
word. That's a huge, huge word, and I think about it. I think daily, and in all kinds of situations, whether it's traffic, it's like,
Yep.
oh, how come nobody's moving? Come on, you guys,
Yep.
light screen, this kind of stuff or whatever. And it's like, well, no, I could just apply acceptance to that
Yep.
because I'm not going to
Nope.
change it. So, um, and likewise with when I peer deep inside and start seeing things that I'm not always comfortable with, and that it's like, well, it's there, so accept it,
Yeah.
right? Maybe some of it needs fixing, and that's fair, but that could take time. But there's probably a bunch of stuff there that I might have thought needed fixing that maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
actually, you know.
Yeah. And there's a
So
saying out there: acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. And when I find some person, place, or thing unacceptable, I may find that the answer to that solution lies within myself. The answer to that
right,
problem, the
absolutely,
solution to that problem, I should say.
yeah,
Tony, you've got a
yeah.
philosophical background. I'm curious what if we're whenever we get into a little philosophy. Uh, I'm curious what you have to say about acceptance now.
Yeah, I learn acceptance when I travel through airports. That's my that's how I deal with and uh, that, and I think hand in hand with acceptance goes sort of like, and the thing I've kind of exemplified for me with trees
Mm,
is judgment, right? Not to pass judgment on something
Mm,
because you have to run into somebody who'll be like they ask you to look at this tree and it's not much of a tree, right? It's just it's not this grand glorious oak or whatever, and it's like, and they're just putting these aesthetic values or this judgment on it. It's like, that tree's fine, leave it alone.
yeah.
Like it is like, don't judge that tree. um and I find myself trying to, along with learning about acceptance and approaching it more and adding it into my life. It's led me down to
yeah,
not be so judgmental
Mm,
of others, of
right,
myself.
right,
And I mean, and it's a tough one because sometimes my job is literally to be judgmental. I'm a trainer,
right,
right? Like I'm paid for my experience to go out and make judgment on people,
right.
and that's fine. But being able to switch that on and off.
Well, and you're a fruit inspector, right? In terms of judgment of people, like we're not called nor qualified to judge the actual human being, but behavior is important. And I feel in our society
Interesting.
we've lost the kind of demarcation between behavior and the person, between doing and being. It's like what I do is what I am. Well, yeah, I'm an arborist, and I feel in my case, I like I mentioned, from little kid on, I've always interacted with plants and trees. I can't stop. It's just my wiring. But so that's part of my being. But I've had X number of other jobs, employment, that kind of thing, and those didn't define me. Those were something that I did. And of course, your behaviors are outworkings of your attitudes. And and Tony, this is probably a thing for you in a lot of cases. If you're, you need to kind of adjudicate how someone's doing in the business. I'm going to take a wild guess that a lot of the time they have an attitude or attitudes that may not even be a really terrible, toxic attitude, but they maybe have an attitude that isn't commensurate with the work they're trying to do, or it needs, the attitude needs modification. And so that's what you're talking about, I think. Is that right? That
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, it's always been difficult for me to criticize other people.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
that's a hard thing.
But when I learned the fact that, like, I'm not, if in a professional setting, I'm not criticizing the person, I'm criticizing their actions.
Right.
So I can really like a person, but not like their actions. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a personal thing. It's like, just because it's something's disagreeable to me. And it's I love, there's a great saying, I think it was Barbara Walters said, there'd be less offended people in this world if less people would take offense.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that sometimes and I think that people start to take offense when they start to put judgments on things, or just fail to accept things. And, we go back to our tree conversation where, the trees will give out resources to other trees, maybe a little bit more to the trees they like.
Right. That they are,
but that's okay.
That's life.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. There's
we
nothing
have to
wrong
accept
with
it.
that. And I don't think the trees that didn't, and maybe the tree that didn't get as much resources isn't pissed off about it. He's like, hey, got what I got.
They're not emotional creatures. They just deal with what happens. The storm comes through and another tree beside them falls on them and breaks the top off. They're like, well, I mean, of course they don't have a thought process, but their response is, in human terms, like, oh, carry on.
It's in the moment, and it's in reaction to what's happening at that time. They don't get bitter over then and spent the next 10 years lamenting the fact that their buddy fell down or their top blew off. And I'm just talking,
Right.
I'm not going to grow anymore. I can't do that.
I'm done. I'm going to sit here and sulk. Yeah.
I'm going to break all the other tops off.
Yeah, exactly.
And it reminds me of a little story. So every time I take the dog for a walk, there's a park across the street where we walk all the time, and there's a little pavilion. It's got a memorial rock, and somebody put this tiny little boxwood bush by it, and every dog in the neighborhood just walks by and pees in this thing, right? And I'm like, and I'm talking to my wife yesterday. I'm like, look, I don't know what that plant was in a former life, but it must have been effing terrible.
That's a really sad karma right there.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what that poor bush did in a life before, but it was terrible. It's like, that thing gets a gallon of dog pee on it a day.
Yeah.
But Tony,
not only that, it's a boxwood, so it naturally smells like cat pee anyway.
Well, sometimes you're the dogwood in the dog park, and sometimes you're the oak in the cemetery.
Yeah. And even the oak in the cemetery gets his roots dug up when they need to make a new grave, right?
Yeah.
But Tony, flipping back a page, you're talking about, having to deliver the hard news kind of thing about someone's, behavior or work performance or whatever. And I think that the Goldilocks zone, that they're probably the really hard part is to be able to impart the message to that person and have them understand that you are really talking about behavior and that you're not condemning the person, that you're not coming down on them as a human being, but it's like this attitude, this behavior, this is what needs tweaking. We need to your fan belt's squeaking. Let's fix that. That kind of a thing. It's like, it's not a bad car. I mean, I'm sure Ferraris get squeaky fan belts or something. At some point, there's going to be something that needs looking after, but it's still a Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's a great car, but it's got something that
Or
needs
it's out of
fixing.
gas.
And, yeah, or that. Yeah. And I think so many of us as humans, we lose sight of that. It doesn't, I've got something that needs to be remedied, but it doesn't diminish me as a human. It doesn't take away from my value.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the value of the grounded assessment.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to relate and say, look, it's not just a squeaky fan belt, man.
Yeah.
Like, we can fix
Yeah.
this. It doesn't. We don't have to throw the car
Yeah.
out. And I often find myself like, what for me was a game changer is when I realized that the reason I wanted to say something, that I wanted to make a difference, was because I cared.
Right. Absolutely.
And occasionally I run into people and, like, I'm not saying anything, because quite honestly, I don't care. Like, it just doesn't, it's
Right.
not, like, I'm not going to take my time and energy to give them a grounded assessment, because it just doesn't affect me that much. And
some,
and that when I've learned those internal cues in myself, it made that process, I wouldn't say easier, but it drives me to do it because I understand the value from a bigger picture.
And there are probably occasions as well where you end up saying to yourself, I can't say anything because I know how this is going to be received. There's going to be an explosion, and it's not worth pushing the red button.
Well, that's where asking permission and identifying and being okay with not, it just not, or knowing it's just not it's not a good time, right? Because all things in time, the right person, right time, right place, right time as well. But also, what I find too is I'll want to say or do something or suggest something because I'm uncomfortable, not because they're uncomfortable or because it's wrong for them. It's because I don't like it, and I have to really watch that too, because it's just me wanting to feel comfortable is the reason, so I got to look at why am I bothered by this,
Yeah. As a kid, your friend wipes out on the bike and their knee is bleeding, and you run over there. Are you okay? Are you okay? And really, your goal is you want them to say, yeah, I'm okay.
You want to keep riding,
because then you feel good. Yeah, well, yeah, that too. but
you also look at it and go, wow, look at that. You really scraped it good, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah. Dust it off, spray a little Windex on it.
Yeah. My Greek wedding.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, it's been a great conversation. Thank you for taking time to help us out, get another episode in. We're almost done for 2025. We only have a couple more to go, but thank you for sharing with us and talking with us today.
It's been a pleasure, and I also feel honored. It's awesome. Thanks for including
You're
me.
welcome. You're welcome.
And Tony, I look forward to when I get to shake your hand in person. So
absolutely, probably sooner rather than later. I get into Canada more often than not. So I've been into Saskatoon quite a few times training. I don't think for this city.
Okay.
Saskatoon Light and Power, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably Saskatoon. Most of what I think I've done is Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that day as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. God bless you.